After the earthquake, the heavy rain followed in quick succession, and the whole world seemed shrouded in a curtain of despair. I floated in the air, watching a squad of soldiers hurry to the site. "I'm dead, he'll probably be glad, won't he?" I was pinned beneath a heavy beam, my consciousness growing dim. This was my last thought before I died. The quake struck without warning. I only had time to get the older children out. 2 7- or 8-year-olds remained in the classroom, frozen in place, bawling their eyes out. I turned and ran back into the classroom. The beam was about to fall on them. I lunged and shielded them beneath my body. Bang, a beam crashed onto my back, and a metallic sweet taste flooded my throat. Even breathing hurt. I am not afraid of dying. With my daughter gone, I have long lived like a walking corpse. 6 months ago I couldn't save her. Today I must save these 2 children. I am so happy, I can finally go see my daughter. "Anna, Mama has come for you." Consciousness slowly slipped away, and the pain in my body vanished. When I came back to myself, I was floating in midair. A squad of soldiers marched forward in the rain. The leader's silhouette looked vaguely familiar. As they drew nearer, I made out the leader and felt a jolt of alarm. "It's Thomas." He was tall, broad-shouldered with a narrow waist, his features resolute, his upright bearing brought comfort. Sadly, Thomas's shoulder never belonged to me. Shock gave way to unexpected relief. Qingyuan County was within the military district where Thomas served. It was perfectly natural for him to come for earthquake relief. I wouldn't vainly convince myself he had come for me. The village chief, wearing a rain cloak, waited in the downpour. When he saw Thomas arrive with his men, he hurried forward to greet him. Regimental Commander Thomas. When the earthquake struck, Teacher Sharon was in class. The children who escaped say she stayed behind trying to save the students in the classroom and couldn't get out. Regimental Commander? I raised an eyebrow. I didn't expect that in the year I'd been gone, Thomas would be promoted from battalion commander to regimental commander. The village chief spoke, pointing at the ruins, his dark face full of guilt and anxiety. "Teacher Sharon is a good person. She never looked down on us mud stompers. She taught diligently and was kind to everyone. The whole village liked her." The man's hawk-like eyes swept over the collapsed houses. His brow knit slightly. I could have sworn I saw a trace of worry on his face. We had been married 6 years, and Thomas always wore a cold expression toward me. Surely I must be imagining it. Bricks, rubble, wooden beams. With no proper tools we could only lift and dig with our hands. Thomas spared no strength. His hands were gradually chafed raw by the rough stones. Thin rivulets of blood welled up, then were washed away by the heavy rain. "Squad leader, go bandage those wounds, we'll handle the rest," one soldier urged when he saw Thomas working so recklessly. Thomas didn't stop his movements and refused without looking up. "I'm fine. Tell the men to be careful." The soldiers knew Thomas's character. After failing to persuade him and still worried, they had no choice but to stay by his side and help. About half an hour later, the rubble was finally cleared. The 2 children I had shielded under me only suffered minor injuries and were taken home by their parents to recover. I hovered in midair and saw my own corpse. I suppose that counts as a novel experience. Thomas froze for a moment, then ran toward me. My body had been slightly deformed under the weight of the beam and was hardly attractive. He half-kneeled beside me, fumbling as he pulled me into his arms. "Sharon, I'm sorry, I'm late." The man murmured, dazed. "This past year, I thought about you and Anna every single day, longing for the days when the 3 of us were together. I'm sorry, I'm so stupid that I only realized how I felt after you left. If I'd known letting you go would put us miles apart, death and life, I would never have agreed to your leaving." Thomas spoke, his eyes slowly reddening, as if tears were about to spill. Mixed with the rain, you couldn't tell whether they were tears or raindrops. I was stunned. Thomas was actually crying for me. Before my shock had even subsided, I heard his voice again, full of pleading and helplessness. "Sharon, Sharon, I love you, please come back. I've already lost our daughter, I can't lose you too." The man's voice was sorrowful, like a wild goose that has lost its mate. It's laughable to say. I fell in love with Thomas at first sight, and later married him, becoming his dutiful wife for 6 years. I courted him cautiously, praying for his affection, but he was stingy with it. He always wore a cold expression, distant and formal at home, while treating Irene and her son with warmth and attentive care. He even gave up our child for her child. The regret and love he shows now may be genuine, but his past indifference, neglect, and favoritism cut deeper into me. Thomas continued to pour out his true feelings and remorse to me. I closed my eyes in pain. Thomas, it's too late. You didn't want my love before, and now I don't want yours. Our marriage was a complete mistake. If I could do it over, I would never marry you. I muttered to myself. Thomas seemed to sense something and looked up at me. Even though I'm a soul now, he shouldn't be able to see me. Yet his gaze still made my spirit tremble. Then I fell completely into darkness. Doctor, what about Leo? Please, you must save my son. The woman's voice trembled with tears, soft and fragile, making one instinctively imagine the speaker to be as delicate as a willow in March. It sounded familiar. Who is it? I leaned half against the cold wall, shaking my head hard, and the blurred figure before me finally came into focus. It was Irene. She had collapsed into my husband's arms, crying with rain-wet cheeks. My husband Thomas held her lightly, worry etched on his face, staring at her without making a mistake. The smell of disinfectant on the tip of my nose quickly brought me back to my senses. Hospital, Irene, Thomas, a bold thought popped into my head. I had been reborn, back to the day a year ago when my daughter fell seriously ill. This time, I would save my daughter for sure. While I was thinking, the doctor's voice sounded again, and the words were exactly the same as in my previous life. Comrade Irene, rest assured, we will do our utmost to treat the patient. The doctor paused, his gaze sweeping over the three of us as he considered his next words. Leo and little Anna have the same illness, but right now the hospital only has 1 dose of the medicine for this disease. To transfer one from the city hospital we have to file a report, and it will take at least 3 hours to arrive. I'm afraid the children won't be able to wait that long. The doctor's implication was clear, the medicine was only enough to save one person. Both were 4-year-old children, and their conditions were similar. Who should be saved? Irene went rigid as if struck by lightning, huge tears dripping down. Thomas, it's all my fault, I'm worthless. If my body hadn't been weak, if I hadn't gone into labor early when I was carrying Leo, how could he have been frail since childhood, and now ended up with this illness? Thomas clenched his fists, veins standing out. I could tell what he was wrestling with. Seeing Thomas silent, Irene wiped the corners of her eyes with a handkerchief, then hit him with another blow. Poor Leo lost his father the moment he was born. If my husband Charles were still alive, he would have done everything to save Leo. Huh. The same tired line again. The name Charles was practically Irene's unbeatable trump card whenever she was with Thomas. Thomas and Charles were bound by a bond of life and death. For years ago they went on a mission together. Charles took a bullet meant for Thomas and died a heroic death. When Irene heard the tragic news, it shocked her so badly she went into premature labor. On top of that, Thomas harbored feelings for Irene that could not be spoken aloud. Admiration, pity, guilt, a tangle of emotions crossed and intertwined. Thomas could be said to take exceptional care of Irene and her child. When the baby was sick, when the house pipes broke, when one day the child got into a fight with other kids in preschool, Thomas solved all the big and small problems. The compound said he was loyal and righteous, responsible. Only I knew how that loyal, righteous Thomas could disregard his wife and daughter. Sure enough, I saw Thomas's clenched fist quietly loosen. He took a deep breath as if he had made up his mind. He looked at me. Sharon, save Leo first. He's been weak since childhood. Anna is livelier and healthier. She can definitely hold on until the medicine arrives. Anna now looks healthier than Leo, but she was often sick before she turned 3. Thomas ran to Irene's house every day, and I had to take care of Anna by myself. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got, and I couldn't help but sneer coldly. Why should that be? Who to save first is for the doctors to decide. The doctor finally understood the three-way battlefield and broke out in a cold sweat. He was just a small-town doctor. The only other man in the room was a battalion commander from the army, hardly someone he could provoke. The middle-aged doctor stammered, and Irene beside him couldn't help speaking up. She started crying again, her face full of sorrow as she begged me. "Sharon, please give the medicine to Leo. He was born premature, his body is weak and can't wait. My family favored sons over daughters. It was such a struggle to get into the arts troupe and marry Charles, and I never expected him to go so soon. All I have left is Leo. Sharon, you're not like me, you came from a good family and married a man like Thomas who has achieved so much. Who wouldn't envy a family of 3 like yours?" She was lost in it, and when she reached the sad part she even came over and tried to take my hand. "Sharon, just let me, please, give Leo a chance to live. Anna is healthy, she can wait." Smack, I charged my right hand and slapped her hard across the face. It felt so good. I lifted my left hand to strike again, but a big palm clamped down and held me fast. It was Thomas. He let go of my hand and turned to comfort Irene. "You can talk all you want, but how can you just go around hitting people?" I hit her because she deserved it. "Thomas, I'm fine." Irene ignored Thomas's consolation, her beautiful eyes brimming with tears as she looked at me. "Sharon, as long as you agree to give the medicine to Leo, you can hit me all you want." As she spoke she took my hand and guided it to strike her face. "That's enough." Thomas, burning with anger, stopped Irene's action and turned to me with a final ultimatum. "Sharon, Charles saved my life, I can't stand by and watch Leo die." He turned to the doctor. "Doctor, give the medicine to Leo. I will take full responsibility for the consequences." I turned and wiped away the surging tears. "Thomas, I thought Charles saved your life, and you two are like brothers, so it's only right you look after him a bit more. That's why I put up with how you used to care for Irene and her son, and never said a word. But I never expected you would so decisively abandon your own daughter. Anna is unfortunate to have a father like you." Thomas tried to defend himself. "Sharon, I don't want to give Anna up. The doctor said it will take at most 3 hours to prepare the medicine, and then Anna can be saved. I still owe Charles my life." "You're going to repay Charles's life by trading your daughters for his son's?" I glared at Thomas, tears in my eyes, furious and disappointed. "Enough. Thomas. You owe the Jose your life. If you want to serve his wife and child like a beast of burden, I have no objection. But since you chose to abandon Anna, from now on you're unfit to be her father. I will save my daughter myself." With that I shoved Thomas and Irene aside and hurried toward Anna's ward. My little girl lay under the snow-white covers, her illness giving her cheeks an unhealthy flush. My Anna was still here. Last time I had listened to the doctors and Thomas and waited at the hospital for the medicine. The drugs never came, and I lost my daughter forever. This time I would save her no matter what. I went to the bedside and scooped Anna up. "Mom, I feel so bad." Anna woke at my movement, blinking drowsily. Her childish voice seemed from another world, a mist blurred my vision. I blinked, letting a tear slip down, then lifted my face into a smile and soothed her softly. "Anna, don't be afraid. Mommy's here. Mommy will take you to the big hospital. Once you're better, you won't hurt anymore." As I said it, I patted Anna's small body and carried her toward the door. Just as I reached the doorway, I ran into Thomas. "Where are you taking Anna?" I looked at him with pure contempt. I didn't want to waste any more time on him. "I'm taking Anna to the city hospital to get treatment. Or should we just stay here and wait to die?" Having said that, I tried to walk past Thomas, but he blocked me. I snapped at him in irritation. "Good dogs don't get in the way." Thomas choked, "But you can't make a dog spit out ivory. You going alone to the city with the kids is unsafe, you're not familiar with the place." "How about?" I shot back, teasing, and looked at him with amusement. "So then, Thomas, are you coming to the city hospital with us?" How could Thomas bear to leave Irene alone? She'd lost her husband and still had a sick child to care for. How pitiable. Caught off guard by my bluntness, Thomas was momentarily at a loss for words. He let go of my hand and slowly lowered it. Sharon, I remember one of your grandmother's students works at the city hospital. Why don't you call him and ask him to keep an eye on things? Irene and Leo really can't be left alone. The logistics team in the regiment happens to be heading into the city. I'll go give them a word and ask them to take you and your daughter to the municipal hospital. The regiment's logistics team only goes into the city on assignment, and everything requires layers of approval. The procedures are a hassle. I can't wait, and Anna can't wait either. No need, I'll find a ride myself. Earlier Thomas had told the doctor to save Leo first. I had harshly criticized him for being unfit to be Anna's father, and now he suddenly took on a little of a doting father's air. After all, when you're not in the right, your words lack conviction. Fine, you go ahead. Once Leo's condition improves, I'll definitely come see you. I neither confirmed nor denied. Pretty words, who can't say them? Being able to say them doesn't mean you can do them. I've heard that kind of thing too many times, and each time he broke his promise. If I could do it over, I would no longer crave his love, would no longer trust his promises. No expectations, no disappointments. I didn't look at him, I passed by and left. I had someone pull some strings and paid extra to secure a car to the city hospital. The road rushed by, August's hot wind poured in through the window, tangling the wisps of hair at my forehead. In the silence, time felt exceptionally long. An hour later I arrived at the city hospital with Anna. A middle-aged man stood at the entrance, wearing black-rimmed glasses, looking genteel and affable. I quickened my pace. Uncle Oliver. A middle-aged man saw me and greeted me warmly. Sharon, you're here. You called me an hour ago. I already have a general understanding of Anna's condition. The city hospital can treat her, don't worry. I followed Uncle Oliver and walked into the hospital with him. Thank you for your trouble, I really appreciate it. Uncle Oliver pretended to be angry, his smiling face slackened, looking somewhat offended. Your grandmother was my mentor, and I'm also a close friend of your father. I watched you grow up and treat you like a niece. Just giving the doctor treating Anna a heads up, thanking him would be too formal. Uncle Oliver was my grandmother's disciple. Grandma came from a family of traditional Chinese medicine practitioners. When she was young she went abroad to study Western medicine and returned home after finishing her studies. In the nation's critical times she threw herself into the revolutionary cause and became a military doctor. My grandmother met my grandfather in the army and they became revolutionary comrades. The two elders had only one child, my father. Grandma wanted to pass all her medical skills to my father, but he wasn't interested, he longed for the barracks. Gradually, Grandma stopped pressing the matter and unexpectedly discovered that Uncle Oliver had a great talent for medicine, so she took him as her disciple. I turned my head to look at Uncle Oliver and raised a smile. We soon reached the clinic. Fortunately the child was brought in on time. This illness is common in children and has a high mortality rate, but with prompt medication the crisis can be averted. I'll have the nurse take you to the ward, the medicine will be sent shortly. I cried with joy. All right, thank you so much, doctor. A week later Anna had recovered. Today was the day she was discharged. I packed her clothes while talking with her. Anna sat obediently on the chair by the bed, nibbling an apple. Mom, are we going home today? I lifted a smile and turned to her. Yes, Anna. Are you happy? The little girl lowered her head to think and forgot to eat her apple. I don't want to go home. Leo takes my snacks and toys. Dad always says that as the older sister I have to be considerate of my brother, and he hugs Leo all the time but never me. At the mention of Dad, Anna's mood noticeably sank. Mom, Dad treats Leo better. Does he not like me? Thomas and I were basically in an arranged marriage. Grandfather and Grandpa Gu were sworn brothers in life and death. Because he once saved grandfather's life, Grandpa Goose suggested tying their families together through a marriage between their children, making the two families even closer. Unfortunately, both grandfather and Grandpa Goose only had sons, so the engagement passed down to the grandchildren. Later, grandfather and Grandpa Goose took posts in different places, and the family's interactions dwindled, limited to exchanging holiday gifts. My mother died of severe bleeding when she gave birth to me, and my father was killed on a mission when I was 13. Grandfather and grandmother had both fought in the resistance when they were young and were left with many lingering ailments. 6 years ago they passed away successively. Of the 5 people in our household, only I was left, relying on my grandparents. 6 years ago grandfather fell gravely ill. Worried I would be alone with no support, he reached out to Grandpa Goose to try to fulfill the marriage agreement. I didn't know if it was right, but if marrying would put grandfather's mind at ease, I was willing to do as he wished. I was thrilled when I saw Thomas before registering our marriage. Half a year earlier I had been harassed by thugs in a remote alley. It was Thomas who descended like an angel, taught the ruffians a lesson, and took them to the police. It was already late. Worried for my safety, he escorted me home. Most women adore heroes, and I was no exception. It was all so rushed that day, and I didn't have time to ask his name or where he lived. Now that we met again, my heart was full of joy. I never imagined my husband-to-be would be the man who saved my life. His looks need no comment, handsome, tall, long-legged, and coupled with my gratitude for being rescued, all of this made me yearn for a marriage with him. Under pressure from both grandfathers, Thomas and I got married. I held the marriage certificate like a prize, secretly exhilarated, not noticing the gloom in Thomas's eyes. I plunged headfirst into the marriage, and now that fervor has slowly died out, leaving me bruised and battered. Even if Thomas's favoritism was a fact, my daughter was still young. How could I bear to tell her that her father favored someone else's child? That would be too cruel for her. I walked over to my daughter, crouched down to meet her at eye level. Leo doesn't have a father, so that's why Daddy is a little nicer to him. But Daddy loves Anna very much too. When you were little he used to hold you all the time. I didn't even believe my own words. I inwardly despised myself, forced a smile, and stroked my daughter's rounded head. Anna, if Mommy and Daddy live apart, would you want to live with Mommy or with Daddy? The little girl laughed and flung herself into my arms, answering loudly, I only like Mommy. I want to be with Mommy. Children actually understand everything, they know who truly loves them. I tidied Anna's 2 little braids and stood up holding her with one arm. Mommy and Anna will always be together. Now let's go home first, okay? Okay. By the time we got home it was already 4 in the afternoon. A thin layer of dust lay on the chairs and benches. I supposed Thomas had been hovering around the hospital every day and had no time to clean. I quickly tidied the living room and Anna's room, then took her downstairs to buy groceries. Many military wives were outside downstairs playing with their children. As I passed a large tree, Commander Wu's wife called out to me, and a few of the other wives gathered around to join in. Sharon, I heard you took Anna to the city hospital. Is Anna better now? I gave Anna's hand a little squeeze and smiled as I spoke. Thanks for your concern, Sister Wu. Anna's fine, look at her now, full of life. Sister Wu nodded. That's good. Once through a scare, 100 ailments disappear. Anna will surely be healthy from now on. No sooner had she finished than one of the nosy sisters-in-law, who loved stirring things up, threw out a barbed remark. Sharon, you took the child into the city for treatment. Thomas didn't say he'd go with you? Irene's child has been in the hospital these past few days, and Thomas was running around like her father. If you didn't know, you'd think they were the real couple. This sister-in-law was the compound's famed loudmouth, always gossiping about other people's business. I already knew she never had anything kind to say, so when she opened her mouth I had Anna go play with the other children nearby. Some things are better left unsaid in front of kids. My face was full of bitterness. I said I understood Thomas, but anyone could tell I wasn't speaking from the heart. Captain Charles owes Thomas his life. Irene is a lone mother with no one to turn to. so it's only right that Thomas pays a little more attention to his brother's wife and child. I come from a military family, my parents and elders taught me to be strong and magnanimous. I'll take our daughter to see the doctor alone, Thomas staying here to lend Irene a hand is fine by me. That little round of tea-table talk wasn't clever, but it gently confirmed the fact that Thomas favored Irene and her child. The sisters-in-law present were sharp, didn't they hear the subtext in my words? Over the years, everyone has seen how Thomas has treated Irene and her child. Before, I stayed silent and people just considered it a curiosity. But now I refuse to tolerate it any longer. Those who don't know what's good for them and take advantage of others will always have to pay the price. Sister Wu looked at me with concern and patted my hand. I know you're generous and sensible, but however much Thomas takes care of Irene and her child, he can't neglect his own little family. As women, we should show some appropriate weakness. If spouses have things to say, they should talk them out, don't leave grudges overnight. Her earnest words went in one ear and out the other. I had no desire to argue with Sister Wu, so I gave a few perfunctory replies and took Anna to buy groceries. Voices of the sisters-in-law floated from behind. I've long thought Thomas was up to no good. The moment he has free time he runs over to Irene's house, standing there with Irene and her son like they're one family. Yeah. Thomas cares more about his good buddy's son than his own daughter. I've always said Irene isn't a good woman. Widows attract trouble, there are so many people in the compound, she could at least seek help from the organization if things went wrong, but she has to call out to Thomas every day, clearly she knows how to manipulate men. Rumors eat through reputations, gossip can rot someone to the bone. As the murmurs faded, I took Anna and went to the consumer cooperative. After washing up, I coaxed Anna to sleep, closed the bedroom door, and came out to sit alone in the living room. The warm yellow light lit a small world, and moonlight jumped in from the balcony, making everything feel strangely desolate. I looked around at the living room's decorations. The curtains, the sofa, the coffee table, the tablecloth, I had chosen them all with care, making trip after trip to the county department store for them. Thomas was busy with training, busy with missions, busy dealing with matters at the barracks. It wasn't until Charles was killed that Thomas began visiting the Zhou family frequently, under the pretext of looking after Irene and her child. At first I thought Thomas was merely taking care of a comrade's widow, but later I saw the way he looked at Irene. I loved Thomas, and that look was all too familiar to me. That night I sobbed under the covers. Reason told me to cut my losses in time, but I couldn't bear to. I believed that as long as I took good care of myself and left Thomas without worries, he would notice me. But I was utterly wrong. The first love that stirred my heart and couldn't be mine turned into an indelible blemish. It would remain in his heart forever, becoming a shadow I could not shake. In both my past life and this one, I saw Thomas clearly. I no longer wanted to exhaust myself trying to please someone who did not love me. Cutting my losses in time is also pride and self-respect. This time I would abandon him and never look back. The clock slowly crept to 9. The night was thick as ink. The sound of the door opening came from the entrance. Thomas had returned. He looked surprised to see me sitting in the living room. "Sharon, you're back? Why didn't you say so beforehand? I could have come to pick you and our daughter up." I snorted and spoke sarcastically. "As if you had time to come pick us up, you were probably busy at the hospital taking care of someone else's child." His tone turned sullen and sarcastic. Thomas sensed my displeasure and irritably unbuttoned the top 2 buttons of his collar. "I didn't think this through. But Leo is seriously ill, and Irene has no one to help her." I cut him off impatiently. "Thomas, let's get a divorce." I watched Thomas with amusement as surprise, shock, and disbelief crossed his face. "Sharon, why are you asking for a divorce? Is it because of this thing with Anna?" I sighed. "It's not just about Anna. While I was caring for her at the hospital these past few days, I gave our marriage some serious thought. The excitement and expectation I felt when I married you are matched only by how hurt I was when I discovered you liked Irene." Thomas hadn't expected that I'd seen through his feelings for Irene so long ago. He thought he'd done a good job hiding it under the guise of looking after a brother's widow. Now there was a hint of flustered indignation at having his secret exposed. Sharon, don't jump to conclusions and let your imagination run wild. Irene and I are innocent, we're taking care of her and the child only because Charles saved my life. Look at you, suddenly finding excuses for your beloved. I sneered, playing indifferently with a strand of hair. Oh, maybe you and Irene really are innocent, but everything you've done tells me you favor them, mother and son. Thomas, you can fool outsiders, but you can't fool yourself or me. I truly loved you once, so I know what it looks like to care for someone. I didn't wait for his rebuttal. I looked toward the ink-dark night and, amid the cicadas' song, remembered the past. Do you remember when I was convalescing after Anna was born? Thomas looked bewildered, he clearly didn't. A few days after Anna was born, you went on a mission and came back saying Charles had taken a bullet for you and died. Irene, upon hearing the terrible news, went into premature labor. You spent every hour at her side, preparing formula, washing diapers, arranging for someone to make broth for Irene to drink, doing every duty of husband and father. Irene is enjoying your care, while I have to look after Anna alone. The winter water is so cold, and my husband is washing diapers for someone else's child, ignoring his own wife and daughter. Tears fell without my noticing, I wiped them away with a casual hand. I pity Irene for losing her husband and having no one to rely on. I kept thinking it would be better once her child was a little older. But I didn't realize what a tremendous responsibility raising a child is. You have to worry about their food and clothes. When they're sick, parents are torn apart. When they grow up they have to go to school, when they reach adulthood you worry about their jobs, when they work you worry about marriage, and when they marry you have to care for grandchildren. I paused, then looked at Thomas intently. Thomas, given your friendship with Charles and Irene, there's no way you could abandon Irene and Leo. And I don't want to share my husband with anyone else, nor do I want Anna to have to share a father's love with other children. Even if both are your flesh and blood, there are degrees of care. 2 children fell ill at the same time, and you chose to abandon Anna, that's the clearest proof. He hurriedly tried to defend himself, reaching out to grab my hand, but I pulled away. Sharon, I admit I treated you and Anna poorly before. Give me one more chance to make it up to you and your daughter. Thomas, I don't want your apologies. Keep your ostentatious fatherly love for your good friend's son, I'm getting this marriage annulled. Seeing how resolute I was, Thomas looked pleading. Sharon, think of Anna. She's so young and still needs her father. Can't we live as a family properly? I was honestly amused, no, furious, at his self-righteousness. I told you back at the hospital when you gave up on Anna, you are not fit to be her father. You've got the nerve to bring up Anna? Have you ever changed her diapers? How many times have you soothed her to sleep? When we were at the municipal hospital, Anna asked me why you always held Leo and never her. Did you not like her? Hearing that was like a dagger to my heart. I was blind, I failed to choose her a good father. Even a child can see what's going on, and you think by playing deaf and dumb all your favoritism and neglect just vanish? After that barrage of accusations, Thomas, irritated, clawed at his hair. He lifted his head, the bloodshot ring in his eyes was unmistakable. I love Anna, he said. I bit back a laugh. Maybe, but Anna doesn't hold a candle to Irene and her son in your heart. I will never let Anna be one of your choices again. Thomas's voice was a little hoarse. Sharon, why are you being so aggressive? Can't we live like we used to? I rolled my eyes and took a sip of warm water. I need a whole husband, and Anna needs whole fatherly love. Clearly, you can't provide that. If so, we'd better part amicably. If you refuse to divorce, I might just have to go talk with the sisters-in-law about how eagerly you care for Irene and her son while neglecting your own wife and daughter. After speaking, I tucked the stray hair back behind my ear. You come from the Gu family, this might not affect you much. But Irene has no one to rely on, and her in-laws are out in the countryside and can't help. What will happen to her I really don't know. As expected, Irene was Thomas's soft spot. The moment she heard I might threaten her, she immediately lost her composure. Irene is so pure and kind, and you would use such malicious rumors to hurt her. If you want a divorce, then so be it, I'll write the divorce papers tonight. If it weren't for the arranged engagement between our families and my grandfather's strict pressure, do you think I wanted to marry you? Sharon, don't overestimate yourself. After 6 years of marriage, I learned the reasons Thomas married me. One was the arrangement between the Shen and Gu families, but more importantly, Irene had chosen the seemingly more promising Charles at the time. Thomas never had the chance to confess, his love died in the cradle, becoming a taboo that could never be spoken of. It happened just as Grandpa Gu was urging marriage. If he couldn't marry the one he loved, who could he marry if not me? Marrying me would please the elders. I went into it with hope, Thomas went in merely to go through the motions. That's how we entered marriage, and now it's ending in bleak failure. Thomas returned to the bedroom and slammed the door hard. I sat frozen in the living room and suddenly felt a chill on my face. It turned out to be my own tears. Thomas acted quickly, the next day he filed for divorce. In this era people valued quarrel on the pillow, make up at the foot of the bed, unless it involved life or death matters, divorce was not taken lightly. Besides, Thomas was a battalion commander, widely regarded in the military as having a bright future. The sudden divorce petition from Thomas shocked the leadership. They even called me in to ask why. I couldn't stand Irene, but I planned to deal with her only after my divorce was finalized. Facing my superiors, I only said that my relationship with Thomas had broken down and we could no longer live together. The leaders urged me, earnestly and repeatedly, to think more about the child, but I was as resolute as a weight on a scale. I insisted on the divorce. After all, it's a personal matter, marriage can't be forced. They told me to go home and wait for news, that the unit would consider it seriously. On the way I stopped by Sister Wang's downstairs to pick up Anna and took her home by the hand. I didn't expect to find Irene waiting at the gate. Irene really was beautiful, otherwise she wouldn't have gotten into the cultural troupe, nor attracted Charles and Thomas. After marriage she moved behind the scenes, and even as a mother she remained slim in figure, alluring in bearing. The news that Thomas and I were getting a divorce had spread through the compound. It wasn't surprising she knew. She was probably here to show off. What a nerve, didn't the slap I got at the hospital leave enough of an impression? I invited Irene into the house and told Anna to go back to her room to play with her toys. When I turned back, she was already sitting on the sofa as if she owned the place. It was Irene's first time in my home. She was looking around at the furnishings, her eyes practically overflowing with greed. Seeing me sit down on the sofa, she immediately launched into her white lily act. Sharon, now that I see Anna is healthy, I can rest easy. Fortunately both children are fine, you're not still mad at me, are you? I gave her a smile that didn't reach my eyes. Of course not. I was the one who lost my temper that day. Is your face feeling any better? Irene's face stiffened. Sharon, I heard you and Thomas are getting a divorce. Is that true? Probing for the truth was her real goal. I set my cup down and smiled at her. Yes, it's true. Thomas has already filed for divorce. With confirmation, Irene couldn't help the corner of her mouth lifting, though she quickly tried to suppress it. Sigh, you two have been married 6 years and you even have Anna, how did it come to divorce? I couldn't be bothered to play polite. I'm divorced from Thomas, aren't you the happiest? With how he feels about you, he'll certainly consider marrying you again after the divorce. Then you, Leo, and Thomas can be a real family. Irene flushed crimson when I hit the sore spot. Why, you're mistaken. Charles and Thomas are close friends. Thomas has taken care of Leo and me all these years partly out of respect for Charles. I snorted. Charles doesn't know his good friend has taken over the role of husband and father, does he? After you had your baby, Thomas brought you tonic soups every day, made the baby's formula, washed diapers. Whenever he had time he came over to your house. When a pipe burst or the wiring shorted, it was Thomas who fixed it. You look like a fragile, spineless thing. When your period comes you make Thomas bring you a hot water bottle and brown sugar tea. At the first sign of thunder and rain you call Thomas and tell him the child is bawling because he's scared and wants his daddy. I was just curious, didn't Charles heroically die? Where would Leo find a father? Or have you been teaching Leo to call Thomas dad all along? Truly heinous, wrecking a military marriage is a grave sin. Irene looked like a frightened rabbit, her eyes red. Sharon, how can you think that of me? Leo is so pitiful, he was born without a father. I always hold Charles's photo and teach him to call out daddy. I didn't care who Leo's daddy was. I just really didn't want to watch Irene's clumsy performance. There are only the two of us here, so stop pretending. You chose Charles back then because his future looked brighter, didn't you? But you didn't expect him to die young, your good days lasted barely any time at all. You sized up everyone around you and decided Thomas suited you best. For one, there was the brotherhood between Charles and Thomas. And secondly, I paused on purpose. You already knew Thomas fancied you when you picked Charles. So after Charles's death, you used childbirth and the child to bind Thomas, to make him participate in your life like a husband and a father. People value what they invest in. Remember the last time Thomas was at the hospital and chose to save your son? You were thrilled, weren't you? You've been angling for this for so long. Once you push me out, you can move in and carry on living the good life, with fame and status all yours. When I bluntly exposed her, Irene stopped pretending, pulled out a handkerchief and wiped away her tears with force. There wasn't a trace of sorrow left. Is it wrong for me to want a good life? It's just that Charles had bad luck, dying so young and leaving me a son. At the mention of her son, Irene curled her lip in disdain. All he does every day is eat and sleep and eat, utterly useless. But he's Charles's son, after all, how could Thomas bear not to look after his brother's child? I often have Thomas come to my house under the pretense of spending time with the child. By showing a little weakness in our interactions, I can make him feel deeply sorry for me. Saying this, she smoothed the folds of her skirt with a self-satisfied air. Women should show weakness, that's how you make a man tender. Look how devoted Thomas is to me, how hard it would be for him to let go. Putting an affair with a married man in such lofty terms is nauseating. I pulled a face of disgust and refused to indulge her further. Enough. You're about to get what you want. Congratulations, may Thomas be yours, and may you have a long and loving life together. No sooner had the words left my mouth than the front door was pushed open. Thomas walked in, his expression unreadable. The door had been ajar, who knew how much he had heard. At the sight of Thomas, Irene reverted to the little white rabbit she usually was, immediately explaining her purpose. Thomas, I heard you were getting a divorce, so I came to persuade Sister Sharon. I didn't expect Sharon. Thomas's face went cold, and his voice lost its usual gentleness. Irene, this has nothing to do with you. You should go back, Leo needs you to take care of him. Irene was good at reading the room and knew it wasn't the time to argue. Divorce was only one step away, she could wait. The empty living room was left with just Thomas and me. Were the things you said just now sincere? I looked at him oddly. Which line are you referring to after all I said? Thomas ground his teeth and repeated, I wish you 100 years of happiness and a lifetime of love. Of course I meant it. May lovers finally become a married couple, I'm cheering for that. Thomas sat beside me, turned so our eyes met. Are you really so eager to shove me on to someone else? I shoved Thomas away. I made myself clear yesterday. 6 years of marriage, you're unfit as a husband and as a father. Better to part amicably than to live resenting each other. If you agree to divorce, fine, if you don't, I'll still take Anna back to City A, at worst we'll live apart in 2 cities. Besides, now that you finally can marry Irene, don't you want to bring home a beauty? I stood my ground, resolute. Thomas finally relented. I owe you and your daughter. If you want a divorce, fine. Anna, take her with you. I'm a man, I won't raise a child. I'll give you the money in the house, and from now on I'll pay Anna's child support on time every month. I snorted inwardly. Won't raise a child? Didn't you do a fine job raising Leo? Suddenly incapable of raising a daughter? What excuses? Still, Thomas agreeing to the divorce was the best outcome. I got up and returned to Anna's room, leaving him alone in the living room. Having gotten what I wanted, I slept soundly all night. During the few days waiting for the divorce approval, I slowly packed up the things belonging to Anna and me. The suitcase held only the items I would need for those days. My winter quilted coat and pants I sent straight back to the house in City A. The house in City A had been left to me by my grandparents and was legally transferred into my name on the day I came of age. Grandma often said that a girl's house is not just a house, but also her confidence and her fallback. Looking back now, Grandma truly had foresight. 10 more days passed, the divorce was approved, and Thomas and I went to complete the formalities. I bought 2 sleeper tickets for the train to City A. Before leaving, I went to the courtyard where my sisters-in-law gathered to say goodbye. I also let slip about Irene's special relationship with Thomas, how Thomas cared for Irene and her child like both husband and father, and how deeply Irene and her child depended on him. Sisters-in-law lead dull, monotonous lives and love these coy, half-true scandalous tales. Even if Irene isn't punished, she'll be ostracized by them. After all, every household has men, and the sisters-in-law have no desire to invite trouble in. It had just rained the day we left, and the air was a bit cooler. The train station was crowded. I sat in the waiting hall, took a thermos from my bag, and gave Anna some water. Suddenly I heard someone call me, the voice oddly familiar. Sharon, Sharon. I stood up instinctively and saw Thomas anxiously searching through the throng in the waiting hall. When he turned and saw me, he ran over and swept me into his arms. Thomas's hot breath was at my ear, and his whisper was frantic, torn with joy and regret. Sharon, Sharon, I found you again, this isn't a dream, not a dream. I love you, I haven't liked Irene for a long time. All those years of caring for her were only out of guilt and unwillingness to let go. I'm sorry, I fell in love with you long ago, and yet my dullness still hurt you. Hearing Thomas, I guessed he must have been reborn like me. But what of it? The harm had already been done, I was lucky to get a second chance to save my daughter. I had painfully, truly experienced the agony of losing a child. The favoritism and indifference were real, I will never again entrust my and my daughter's happiness to anyone else. The divorce is decided, I will never turn back. I pushed Thomas away coldly, watching him without sadness or joy. We signed the divorce papers the day before yesterday. Whoever you like from now on is none of my concern. Thomas grabbed my hand, trembling slightly. Sharon, you're back too, right? Let's not worry about Irene anymore. The 3 of us can start over, can't we? I tore my hand free from his grip with force, looked into his eyes, and refused with solemn seriousness. No. A broken mirror is hard to mend, and spilled water can't be retrieved. The hurt, the pain, and the grievances were real. I have no expectations of you anymore. Thomas lowered his eyes in disappointment, as if he felt my heart was set like a rock, immovable. The train was about to depart, and the conductor began urging us on. My and Anna's train is about to leave. Goodbye, Thomas. I didn't look at him again. With one hand I carried the suitcase, with the other I held Anna's hand and walked toward the carriage. Behind me came Thomas's excited shout. Sharon, I won't remarry. I'll love you forever. I smiled faintly, not really caring. We're divorced, what does it matter to me whether you remarry or not? From now on we're strangers, only Anna remains the sole connection between us. With the conductor's help, Anna and I smoothly found our berth. The train slowly set off. I watched the scenery outside the window slowly recede. Trains only move forward, they never turn back. Life is the same, you must keep moving forward and never look back.